Hi, Jonathan here again with another update number 3. Just have some miscellaneous updates, plus I want to talk a little bit about the book itself, if video games have taught me anything. So on a personal note, finally finished Tears of the Kingdom, the latest game in the Zelda franchise. Don't know if I have a lot to say about it. It's kind of what I expected. And it's one of those games that you play, and then you get to the end and you're like, okay, that was a game. Uh, let's see, what else? Was remembering that just 6 years ago, my family and I took a trip over to Tampa to see the Distant Worlds concert performance live, the concert performance of the music from Final Fantasy. And Arnie Roth and Nobuo Uematsu were also there, composer of many of my favorite songs from the Final Fantasy franchise. So I actually just ran across the pictures from that, and that was all the way back in 2018. My, how time goes fast. But anyways, enough about that. Let's talk a little bit about the book. 2018, something else also interesting happened. It was during that time that I was on the social media platform, or X, or whatever it's called now. In any event, I happened to reach out to some people to have a conversation. I was trying to spark some engagement and ask people, what's a life lesson that you've learned from a video game? And then on a whim, I reached out to notable actor, rapper, heavy metal musician, Ice-T, and got a reply. His response was something along the lines of, you don't respawn in real life. And that got me thinking. Not only was it a profound, but also kind of funny take on the question, it reminded me of this book I'd been working on that we talked about before, One Life No Continues. And it gave me an idea where I began asking other people, what's the life lesson you've learned from video games? Now, that was something I asked on my podcast, the Classically Trained podcast, based off of the classicallytrained.net website, but I hadn't really done anything with it. And so I started going around asking people that question, just kind of writing down what they said. And over time, this idea for the book evolved from that One Life No Continues to something that would highlight these different stories that other people have had. And I started writing it, and next thing I know, I had about 40,000 words worth of a book that was themed by chapter, where, various individuals made comments about their answer to that question, and then I grouped them by a theme and then kind of built a narrative around there. So whether it was like personal accountability or video games taught me to never give up, those type of ideas, and had stories with it. And I liked it, but it felt kind of clumsy, and it still felt like there's a lot of me in there. And I wanted it to be something that anyone could get into. My first book was really about management and leadership and the sort of things that is kind of niche in that regard. I wanted this to be something broader, something that any of us can say, oh yeah, I played video games and I didn't waste my time. Let me tell you how. And so that's how I landed on this idea, if video games have taught me anything, which really is a bit of a meme or a joke where a picture's displayed and maybe there's a bunch of bricks that look out of place and someone says, if video games have taught me anything, there's treasure behind that wall. That sort of idea. But I applied it to that idea of what's a life lesson you've learned. And so I decided to kind of retool the entire piece. So I threw away my draft and I started over. I kept the stories, I kept the responses that people had. But I thought, what if it looked something that was a little easier to get into, like one page? And so there are books out there that I've read that are kind of like that. One that comes to mind is Tim Ferriss wrote a couple books. I believe one is Tools of Titans. Also wrote Tribe of Mentors, kind of the same idea where he asks a single question and then he does a profile on the person. His was more of an interview. So my approach was just highlight this person, who they are, what they're known for, include their quote up at the top, and then share my thoughts on this idea and include some other video game references, maybe some personal stories, but keep it real short, about a page each. And so that's where that idea was born. So if video games have taught me anything, came from that start on One Life No Continues, combined with these various individuals giving me that answer. What's the life lesson you've learned from video games? So I'll tell you more in a future update. The format has been really exciting to work with, and there are some neat modifications I made that have made this a really useful book for those who want to share the stories of how others have learned from games, but also ways that you and I can take their answers, their lessons, and apply them to our own life. Meanwhile, I'm still working my way through the draft. I've about 80 pages through my first printout, read through, underline piece. Once I finish up those last couple pages, once we get through that 20% and get to 100%, then comes the fun time where we get to go in there and make the actual edits in the document and do another reread and see how that turns out. But I'll provide more updates on that as well. Meanwhile, though, I will encourage you, go out, check out the Final Fantasy Distant Worlds albums. You can see their music online. I'll include some links below in the show notes. All right, until next time, stay curious and keep learning from everything around you. Talk to you soon.